Yep. And we're off. I have to do it because some of you guys like when I do it. So I'm going to do it. And we're off. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the All Dolphins podcast on this Friday, November 14th, 1993. Wow.
1993. Oh my God.
Where's
We're
that?
back in the time
Yes,
machine.
because we're back in the
What?
time machine because I was going to mention that quick history lesson at the top of the show to get it out of the way. And I kind of like talk about spoil the ending. By the way, if you're going to go see the movie Titanic, the ship hits an iceberg and it sinks. Oops. Okay.
I
Anyway,
had no idea.
yeah, I know. So November 14th, which is today's date, but in 1993, if you're a Dolphin fan, especially of a certain age, you should know the significance of that date because that is when Don Shula became the winningest coach in NFL history
How about that?
with the Dolphins defeating the Philadelphia Eagles 19-14 at the old Veterans Stadium in a butt ugly game. The circumstances around the game were these. The Dolphins already were on their second quarterback of the season because Dan Marino had torn his Achilles in a Week 5 game against the Cleveland Browns. Week 4, maybe? Week 4 or 5. So he was gone for the season. Scott Mitchell, who had been a fourth-round pick out of Utah, came in to take over, got off to a very, very good start in place of Marino. And then he sustained a shoulder injury in that game against Philadelphia on November 14th to be replaced by Doug Peterson, who was either a rookie or first-year quarterback out of Northeast Louisiana, whose playing career never amounted to very much, although he spent some time with the Green Bay Packers. Anyway, long story short, I know, too late for that. The Dolphins wound up managing to pull out a 1914 victory, which was the 325th of Don Shula's career, helping him pass George Halas as the all-time winningest NFL coach. John Shula, of course, wound up with 347 victories, which is a number you remember because there is an address around the Dolphin Stadium, which is 347 Don Shula Drive, as I seem to recall. So anyway, here's a quick history lesson. No, today is not November 14th, 1993. It's November 14th, 19... I can't even do it. Oh my Lord. My brain cells are not working today. 2025. So welcome. Before we get into it with Dante Colonelli, deputy editor of Miami Dolphins on SI. Yes, I will do my spiel. I have a comment complaining about it, me doing it all the time because of the people who are watching. They already knew this. This is for the people who maybe have stumbled upon this podcast. So I'm going to do it anyway. It doesn't take 6 minutes as the gentleman or lady suggested it did. It's going to take about 30 seconds. And it's simply this. Please like, subscribe to the podcast if you don't already do so. Comment. Please keep it respectful and all that good stuff. Podcast is available for those who prefer an audio version wherever you get your audio podcast, Google, Spotify, Apple, all those good places. And last but not least, check out the free written content by this dude right there, Dante Colonelli, myself. Jake Mendel also contributes to the site as well. We have a lot of content all the time, and it's always free. What was that? 30 seconds even? Did it even reach 30 seconds?
Didn't feel like it.
Okay. So today we're going to discuss this game against the Washington Commanders on Sunday in Madrid, Spain. Also going to throw a little something different that we haven't done yet. We're going to do it on a regular basis. Dante is the draft guru of Miami Dolphins on SI. I dive into it a lot more. Sorry, what'd you say?
I said I like that. It's a good title.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, guru feels right, you know.
Okay, there you go. we have to get you a hat that says guru. I dive into it head first, feet first, all of it in the spring once the regular season is over. My man over here checks it out year round. So we will talk about that as well. Let's talk about the game against Washington first. Washington is 3-7, 5-game losing streak, and I saw a stat today. I didn't know they lost their last 4 games by 20 points or more. They can tie a dubious NFL record of 5 consecutive losses by 20 points or more, set by the 1986 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Having said that, is there any reason to think the Dolphins stumble on this one and wind up losing?
I mean, is there any reason? I could come up with a few maybe, but I think these are teams to me heading in opposite directions, right? I don't know that either of these teams are particularly good. I don't know that either of these teams are going to be in the playoffs this year. But to me, the Dolphins are ascending. They have played better, generally speaking, the last 4 weeks of the season. They have played better. Now that includes some losses and some not so great games, but generally speaking, I think the arrow's been going up the past 4 weeks for Miami, as opposed to Washington, where the arrow has been going very, very down, like off of a cliff, right? And so I think if you're a Dolphins fan looking at this game, this might be the first time this year outside of the Jets game where I think you come into this game and you're like, the Dolphins should win by like 10. Like they should, right? Like they should. I don't know that they will, but they should. They're the better football team here in just about every facet that you could look at in this game as far as how each unit is playing right now. I think, the Commanders might have some individual players who are better than Dolphins individual players, whatever. But generally speaking, with all the injuries that Washington has and the way that they're playing, the Dolphins should win this game by 10. They should be the better football team. They should come out. They should win on defense. They should win on offense. They should win in the trenches. The Commanders they have players suspended. Everybody that you could name on that offense is hurt. So it's really tough sledding for Washington. They have one of the worst defenses in the sport. They're worse than Miami's defense was at the beginning of the season for the most part. If you look at the advanced statistics, Washington is like on pace to be one of the worst defenses of all time if they continue playing like they have the past 5 to 6 weeks. So to me, this is a very not only winnable game, it's a game that you should win if you're the Dolphins.
Yeah, and this is one of those games where we will do it because fans really like it, but when I wrote my game-by-game predictions before the season started, I always included a very strongly worded, or as strongly as I could at the time, word of caution: teams will change through the course of the season. When the schedule came out, we were looking at Washington and Spain on November 16th. It was like, oh, that's going to be a tough one. Because Washington last year, it's easy to forget, they went to the NFC title game against the Philadelphia Eagles. And they were coming back with Jaden Daniels. There were some signs to me that things might not be so great for them heading into the season. So their offseason wasn't necessarily great. They kind of stocked up on a lot of older players, particularly on defense, which a lot of times doesn't bode well. And it wasn't a great defense to begin with last year. And they lost Jonathan Allen to the Minnesota Vikings, who was one of their key pieces on the defensive line, along with Daron Payne, who will not play in this game because he was stupid enough to try to punch somebody in the helmet in the game against Detroit last week. But I don't know that anybody expected them to like fall off a cliff, as we mentioned, like this. They were 3-2 at one point. And it's interesting to note that before those 4 losses by 20 or more, the game that started their slide was that Monday night game against Chicago, where they have it pretty much in control. They're up by 2 with 3:01 left. They have a 3rd and 1 at the Chicago 40-yard line. It's driving rain, and they call for a handoff out of the shotgun formation, and Jaden Daniels can't control the shotgun snap because it's really, really wet. The handoff is not clean. Chicago recovers the fumble. They go down on running plays, basically, and then set themselves up for a game-winning field goal. And I don't know if it speaks for mental softness on the part of the Commanders, but it went down a cliff after that. Starting the following week, and the next game was against Dallas. They lost 44-22. And I know Dallas has a good offense, but like that. So this is not a shell of the team that we thought they were going to be. They have some big names. But again, how effective are they? And Von Miller is like a big name, but he's not the Von Miller we all know and love and all that. Deebo Samuel leads the team in receptions, but Terry McLaurin's their one good wide receiver. It's just not a team that can hurt you that much. Where do you stand on Marcus Mariota as a quarterback, as we have this storyline of the 2 Hawaii quarterbacks going against each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as backups go, I think Marcus is pretty solid. I think he gives you a chance to win a lot of games. I think he can do some things with his legs. He's like, generally speaking, pretty accurate. But obviously he's a backup for a reason, right? Like there's limitations to his game. He's not really the type of player who's going to go out there and make a bunch of amazing plays, dice you up. If you're in tight coverage, it's hard for him to generate the arm strength to really fit those windows effectively and all that stuff. But I mean, as far as backups go, I think he's probably one of the top like 3 to 5 in the league, I would say. I think he gives you a really good shot to win a lot of games if you can do enough good things around him to keep him in the game. I don't know that he's going to go out there and like lose you a football game necessarily, but he's certainly not going to go out there and win you a football game either, I don't think, at this point in his career. And to me, when I look at the Commanders, I don't know that they can do enough around him right now because of the injuries that they have. Terry McLaurin's not going to play in this game. They are out Austin Eckler. They traded Brian Robinson before the season. They're on Bill Krosky Merritt is the first running back, and the second one is escaping me right now. They are down players at receiver as well. They're down other players at receiver. Debo's been in and out of the lineup this year. I think he's going to play this week. Luke McCaffrey's injured even, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, this is a team that doesn't have a ton of playmakers really get the ball to. Zach Ertz is on the injury report at tight end. The offensive line, I think, has some nice pieces, but they haven't played necessarily up to where you'd expect them to be. Laramie Tunsil's still been really good, but outside of that, I think they have a little bit of trouble there. And then, I mean, so Mariota to me is the type of player who can certainly keep you in the football game and can make some things happen. I don't think he's going to be a total pushover for Miami on Sunday, but man, he just doesn't have a lot of guys to throw the ball to, not a lot of really good separators. The running game hasn't been very good this year for Washington. I think a lot of that last year was attributed to how much of the threat of Jaden Daniels' legs gives you in the running game. And Marcus gives you a little bit of that. He can still move, but he's not Jaden Daniels. And so to me, I think Marcus is just in a really, really tough spot right now. And this Commanders team is in a really, really tough spot right now. I mean, this is a dig deep game for them. They need some guys that you and I haven't really seen play a lot of snaps to step up and play a big game if they're going to go out there and take it to the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. So I like Marcus. I think he's a good backup. I think he'll stick in the league for another probably 5 to 6 years or so as a solid backup, but doesn't have a ton around him. If Terry McLaurin's healthy, if Zach Ertz is healthy, if the offensive line's playing a little bit better, if they had a better running back there, I think the Commanders could be a threat to you on offense for sure. But right now, just too many injuries.
Yeah, and I'm going to preemptively mention that we're not saying this to, before the fact, take anything away from what the Dolphins might accomplish. This is just stating the fact that that's who the Dolphins are playing. And it's even more reason why they should win this game. You mentioned the offensive line. Another player we should mention on the offensive line is left guard Chris Paul, not the basketball player for the Clippers. But if you recognize the last name, yes, that is Patrick Paul's older brother. And interestingly, Patrick Paul spoke to the media on Thursday and talked about how he hasn't had a chance to catch up with his brother all season until this week in Madrid, of all places, when each team had their day off on Tuesday and were able to take in the sights. And the two Paul brothers actually hooked up, which was also very nice. We should also mention that in light of the injury to one of their cornerbacks, Troy Amos, the rookie, a new projected starter for the Commanders in this particular game is one Noah Igbinoghene.
Dolphins fans love Noah Igbinoghene.
They do.
It's a fan favorite, man.
No, and then in retrospect, that was just a bad pick. It was a weird pick at the time in 2020 when the Dolphins chose him out of Auburn, considering his relative inexperience at the position as a converted wide receiver. It really didn't take long for him in the NFL to see that the dude's got no cornerback instincts. He really doesn't. And I don't know how much of a factor it played in his lack of development, but if you follow the podcast, you know I'm a big fan of Brian Flores in terms of X's and O's. The dude can coach. But when he put him in his second or third NFL game after Byron Jones pulled a hamstring against the Buffalo Bills, and he had Noah Igbinoghene matchup against Stephon Diggs, I thought that was malpractice. And then he kept Xavier Howard on John Brown, who was the speedster, and Stephon Diggs, who's a tremendous rock runner, just turned Noah Igbinoghene inside out the entire game. And I don't know what that did to his psyche, if that set him back a bit, or it was a pick that was doomed to fail from the beginning. But yeah, that's a tough one. Noah's a nice kid. I mean, we interviewed him several times during his time with the Dolphins, and you root for him. It just hasn't panned out particularly well. Actually played decent last year, and then this year he lost his starting job as a nickel corner, and he's barely played. He got in the game last week against Detroit, because of the injury, and didn't work out well for Washington, which gave up like 520 yards of offense.
Just a few yards, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I was never a big Igbenogany guy. I think I had like a 3rd or a 4th round grade on him coming out of Auburn. So to see him go 30th overall was, I'm going to go with jarring, is probably the word I would use. But I think he's carved out a nice little role for himself as a depth corner. I think if he's your 4th or 5th cornerback, I think you're fine with that. And
sure.
We'll see if he gets up a little extra motivated on Sunday morning. I would imagine he will be.
Yeah, and if we were to rank like the biggest draft whiffs for the Dolphins, let's say since 2000, I think the 3 that stand out, he would have to be mentioned. Unfortunately for him, Charles Harris would have to be another one, and Deion Jordan would have to be another one. And maybe, I don't even want to. And by the way, for those going
we do a whole podcast on that if we want.
Well, no, correct. That would be interesting. Around draft time, we should. I know there are some also going back a little further who will mention Yatil Green, first round pick in 1997, but I refuse to include him, and I will never include him because he tore an ACL in each of his first 2 training camps, and basically his career never got off the ground. That's not to me, not a draft whiff if the guy gets hurt. I mean, that's different than just not being a good player, and unfortunately, that's what that was. I don't know that there's not necessarily that much else to say about the Commanders, other than I mentioned this earlier in another episode earlier this week. Dan Quinn has taken over as the interim defensive coordinator for Washington in the hope that it does something for their defense. And as mentioned before, last time the Dolphins played the Commanders, they had done the exact same thing after Ron Rivera had fired Jack Del Rio after a 45-10 loss against Dallas on Thanksgiving Day 2023. And when the Dolphins played Washington in 2023, 10 days after, it wasn't any better for the Washington defense. It was 45-15. So will it be deja vu all over again? We shall find out.
We'll see.
So having said all that, and this leads into the possibility, this is a discussion we had earlier this week. We're not going to repeat it, but if the Dolphins win, they go to 4-7 with their bye. New Orleans after the bye, the Jets after that. And if you saw the Jets on Thursday night, they have some fight, they have some spunk, but it's an extraordinarily limited team with an extraordinarily limited quarterback. And logically, a game the Dolphins should win. And all logic says the Dolphins will be 6-7. They will show up on that graphic that says in the hunt. And then we'll see what happens from there. It's still highly unlikely they're going to make the playoffs. Highly unlikely they'll even be in contention in week 18. But why not? Why dismiss the possibility? So now, turning over to the draft, as promised. Don't know where to begin. I'm going to begin with this, which was kind of a Dolphin / draft-related question. The idea that the Dolphins need to get a quarterback for the future absolutely makes sense. How careful do they have to be, though, not to reach for it to fill that goal, given that the pool, which according to The Athletic and a story they did today based on feedback from scouts, does not include a wow prospect at the position?
Yeah, it's going to be a question that I think we'll have to ask ourselves for the next 6 months or so, whenever April is. I can't count off the top of my head, but it's going to be a question for us until April, because this class, I think in the summer, when you looked at this group of passers, you went, oh, we have a lot of quantity here, and we'll see who rises to the top and who doesn't as the draft season goes along. Now you look at this group and you go, oh, we don't have a lot of quantity. And some of the players who are rising maybe aren't your typical top 5 pick caliber players right now. You look at a player that I really like in Dante Moore from Oregon. I'm expecting him to go back to Oregon next season. I don't think he's going to be in this draft class. You look at players that you kind of had some hope for over the summer, like Garrett Nussmeier and Drew Aller and Cade Klubnik at Clemson. Those 3 guys did not and have not performed well. Now Aller has a season-ending injury that he's rehabbing from. Nussmeier was benched last week, has been terrible. His head coach just got fired. Cade Klubnik in Clemson has gone straight off of a cliff. They stink. And so this quarterback class, all of a sudden, you're looking at Fernando Mendoza from Indiana, Cal transfer, who I think was very good at Cal last year, kind of flew under the radar and has really blossomed with Indiana this year. And then you're looking at Ty Simpson in Alabama, who's a first-year starter who I like a lot, but again, has played in like 10 football games roughly. So there will be some questions there as much as I like him. And then you get into the three guys that I just mentioned who will probably come out, but you don't really love the profile. And then you're looking at players like Brendan Sorsby from Cincinnati, who's kind of a hot name in draft circles right now as a tools guy. But again, a lot of projection, plays at Cincinnati. How much is that, tools? How ready is he? I don't know. We'll have to see. So this quarterback class really at the top, if Dante Moore goes back to school, to me, you're looking at 2 first-round players in Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson, and each of them, I like both players. I think both players are solid first-round quarterback prospects. Are they top 5? Or are they guys that I'm just like drooling over? Right now, no. That could change. Those guys are going to play in a lot of big games down the stretch. Both teams should make the college football playoff. They're going to get opportunities to wow scouts and wow fans and finish the season strong. But right now, I like those players. I don't love them. I don't know that I would force a quarterback pick. If one of them falls to me, if Dante Moore's in this class and I get him 7, 8, 9, 10, sure, maybe. And with your point earlier that the Dolphins might be 6 and 7, I don't know that they're going to be picking top 5 anyway. So maybe they're in a good spot to get a quarterback. But to answer the question that you asked at the top, no, I don't think this is a class where you force it. This is not the class to me where you trade multiple first-round picks trying to get up to number 3 to get your guy. But that doesn't mean there isn't quarterback talent in this class. I do think that there is. It's just it's an okay group. It's an okay group of guys who has a lot to prove down the stretch.
Yeah, and if you followed the podcast long enough or follow me on either social media or the other podcast, Dolphins Collective, I have advocated for a while that the Dolphins right now always should aspire to find somebody who can match up as best as possible against the elite quarterbacks, because all of them are in the AFC. It's crazy, but it's Lamar, Burrow, Josh Allen, Mahomes, and now you have to add Drake May to the mix, and I'm not so sure Justin Herbert doesn't belong there. The Dolphins need to aspire to get somebody of that ilk, but again, not forcing it, particularly when you have a quarterback who's got a $56.4 million cap number in 2026, and you can't get away from him. And I know a bunch of national media outlets are doing stories on what are the Dolphins going to do at quarterback in 2026. And what you hear pretty much unanimously is good luck trading him, or if you trade him, you're going to have to eat some of his salary. Okay. And then again, what's the point? It's not, to me, it's not the idea of advocating on that project, but it doesn't have to be like necessarily immediately. If there's somebody who presents himself, whatever, like available via trade or in free agency, which probably not very likely. Again, you always have to factor in the fact that Tua's got that nasty contract. So it could be that Dolphins may just be better served by just writing it out with Tua for another season. Not like he's a terrible quarterback, but again, you kind of a little bit hamstrung with his contract. Now, having said that about the quarterback position, before we get back to the draft talk, I did want to mention the final injury report for the week. The Dolphins have one player listed as doubtful. That's Austin Jackson. He was designated to return. He's still on IR. I would be shocked if he wasn't downgraded to out on Saturday. Stays on IR, and then you've got 2 more weeks of prep before he can come back against New Orleans. And then the Dolphins have 3 players listed as questionable. That would be D. Eskridge with the shoulder injury, Rasul Douglas with the foot and ankle. They both sat out the game against Buffalo last week. And then the other one, there's a new name on the injury report, came out of nowhere a little bit on Friday. That's Bradley Chubb, who is dealing with a foot injury, listed as questionable, is limited in practice on Friday. The good news counter to that is that Chubb Robinson's off the injury report. He cleared concussion protocol, will play. So if Chubb for some reason can't play, then you logically would have Judon and Robinson as your outside linebackers. If Chubb can play, Chubb's going to start, and then maybe it would be Chubb and Robinson. Would they still keep Chubb and Judon and have Chop as a more of a pass rushing specialist? Because as Dante chronicled, they're going to give Chop more opportunities, to see what he can do in the second half of the season. Quickly, Washington ruled out 6 players, the 3 they had earlier this week: Treylon Burks, Jaden Daniels, Will Harris, along with Terry McLaurin, Ali Cahoe, the linebacker, and Drake Jackson, who was also somebody who was like Austin Jackson on IR, returned to practice this week. So, and then they had linebacker Jordan McGee questionable, tight end Ben Sanat questionable as well. So that's your injury report. Going back to the draft, how about you give me 3 to 5 prospects who you would really not mind seeing in a Dolphins uniform in 2026?
Oh man, that's such a good question. I just started doing my draft prep this week. I think what's interesting about the Dolphins to me is I think you could argue that they have a need at almost every position on the roster. Generally speaking, I think like center, left tackle, RB1, wide receiver 1. I think you feel good about those. Like defensively, I think they could use another pass rusher, interior player. I think they could use a linebacker next to Jordan Brooks. Cornerback room has no long-term options. Safety, not great either, really. So I say all that to say that I think that there's a wide variety of options for the Dolphins at the top of the draft. So I'll start with Caleb Downs, the safety out of Ohio State. I think he's going to be in contention to be my top overall player in this class. I do not stack my board with positional value. I watch tape. I grade tape. Whoever has the highest numbers, the highest graded player. That's what mock drafts are for, at least in my opinion. You mock draft based on positional value and things like that. To me, I'm just grading players. Caleb Downs is a 3-year starter, got on the field as a freshman for Nick Saban in Alabama, transferred to Ohio State, and has just been bonkers good. He covers, he run defense, he's tough, he's strong, he's fast, really, really good ball skills. To me, he's the type of player that I know that at safety, you probably don't want to spend a top 10 pick on a safety. And I'll be honest, I don't think that the Dolphins will take a safety in the top 10, but it's early, so we don't know where we're going to end up. So I'll wax poetic about Downs for now, and then I'll change my tune in a couple months depending on where the Dolphins are. But I just think he's one of the most complete players that you could add in this class. And so I really, really like what he brings to the table. Go ahead.
Let me interrupt real quickly, though. Dolphins, I don't believe I've ever taken a safety in the top 10. They did take Minkah Fitzpatrick at number 11, though, in 20.
They did. And it's I wrote about this for us, so you can go read this. I did a review of Caleb Downs and why I think he could fit, but maybe also why I don't think the Dolphins would take him where they were picking at the time. I think they were like 5th at the time that I wrote the story. You look at the best safety prospect. Kyle Hamilton went 14th to the Ravens. You just mentioned Minkah Fitzpatrick went to 11. I had Minkah Fitzpatrick as the 3rd best player in that class, and he went 11th. Kyle Hamilton was my number 1 overall player in that class. He went 14th. Antoine Winfield Jr. had a first-round grade on, second-round pick. Brian Branch, first-round grade on him, second-round pick. So safeties, they drop, they fall. And so Downs is going to be really, really interesting. But to me, if you're Miami, like, man, is he good. He solved so many problems for you on the back end. If you get another year with him and Minkah Fitzpatrick, like, whew, you're cooking. Those are 2 good football players on the back end. So that would be probably one of the top ones. I just want to bring up my board here real quick as I scroll. I think another one that I would look at is in the corner room as well. 2 of the top corners in this class, Jermon McCoy from Tennessee, who unfortunately we haven't seen this year. He tore his ACL in last year's college football playoff, so he hasn't played. If you go back and look at the tape, this is first-round tape. I don't know if this is like a Will Johnson situation where you get him maybe at the top of day 2 because he has the injury, but I really like him as a potential starting corner. Someone who has played this year, Mansour Delane from LSU. He's a senior, Virginia Tech transfer. I think he's been phenomenal this year. Man coverage, zone coverage. He's 6 foot, about 190, runs well, good transitional skills. I like him a ton. And then there would be some like pass rushers that I would be interested in, like TJ Parker from Clemson, 6'3", 260, big athletic power rusher. I think he brings a lot to the table. And then I'll mention Peter Woods as well, interior defensive lineman from Clemson. I would love to see the Dolphins continue to invest in the trenches with high-end picks and just kind of figure out where those guys are. If you look at teams like the Eagles and the Ravens, they pick those dudes. They pick them in numbers, and they have a really, really good rotation. So to me, Woods, 6'3", 310, bit of a down season this year compared to his previous seasons, but he's strong, he's explosive. Everyone on Clemson's been bad this year. It's just kind of the team's not very good right now. So those would be guys who really stick out to me. I mean, it's a lot of defensive players. This is going to be, I think, a defensive heavy top 10. this year.
Okay, interesting. For me, I would say the one position where I would not be happy if the Dolphins spent a draft pick would be running back. And because you kind of narrowed it down to RB1, to me, it's like any running back, I would not be thrilled because, again, 2023 third-round pick on Devon Achane, 2024, it was a fourth-round pick on Jalen Wright, but you used a third-round pick in 2025 to get him. And then in 2025, you drafted Ollie Gordon, too, who looks like somebody who has a future. So it's like exactly how many running backs do we need to keep drafting year after year after year.
Yeah, it's not a great running back class either. So I don't know that there's going to be a ton of pull to take one of those guys. But again, it's early.
Yeah, correct. So that would be my one position. Outside of that, like you mentioned, I don't know that there's any position you can eliminate. Left tackle doesn't look like a need because Patrick Paul certainly looks like the answer there. Elm Brewer is a very good center. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything else you can eliminate here.
I'm not eliminating anything else. I think everything's fair game. Tight end, receiver, guard, right tackle. I think you use another linebacker. You have no corners of the future right now. I don't really know that you have a safety of the future. I think Dante Trader Jr. is showing you that he can be a player on your roster and be in the rotation, and that's a huge win for a fifth-round pick. But am I starting him for 18 games a year going forward? I don't know that I'm comfortable with that yet. So, I think everything's fair. I think you're going to need another pass rusher. I don't think Bradley Chubb comes back next year. Matthew Judon probably doesn't come back next year. So you're looking at Job Robinson. That's it.
Correct. Although I'm actually surprised Bradley Chubb's still on the roster, to be honest with you. And I would imagine the Dolphins didn't get a major offer. This should be pointed out that Champ Kelly spoke to small group of reporters who made the trek to Madrid. Unfortunately, I wasn't part of that group. But I saw the statements he made. And basically what he said is that they, instead of having some sort of game plan, a collective game plan as far as what we're going to do at the trade deadline, is they evaluated every player on the roster, put a value on each player, and if somebody would match or top that value, then they'd be willing to make a trade, which is what happened with Jalen Phillips. Obviously, contract situation comes into play, or I would hope it would come into play. And then the question becomes, because I find it very hard to believe. In fact, no, I know there was a report out of San Francisco that they thought they had a deal for Bradley Chubb. The question, of course, was what were the Dolphins offered? And in light of the fact that the Dolphins were 2-7 at the time of the trade deadline, and as you mentioned, the likelihood that Bradley Chubb's playing his last season with the Dolphins because of his cap number and the fact that he already took a pretty nice haircut to even remain on the team in 2025, I have a hard time seeing him, because he's going to ask him to restructure, cough, take another pay cut to come back in 2026.
Yeah. And they can get out of it for nothing. Correct. There's no more guaranteed money on the deal. There's no pain point here. They can just cut him whenever they want and free up whatever money is left over. So, I'm with you. I'd be surprised if he's back next year, unless they cut him and they bring him back on a vet minimum. If nobody signs him, which I would imagine he'll get some interest, even if it's not from Miami, just because he's had some okay numbers this year and it looks like he's playing better. So
it's interesting for me because before the game against Buffalo, it was I looked at him his numbers were oh, man, that's deceiving, because I have not been.
Yeah,
I agree. And then Sunday he completely balled out. I thought Sunday he was excellent. So I don't know if he got sparked by the fact that the Dolphins did hang on to him. And when he was asked after the trading deadline if there had been any talk about next year, he said, no, I'm focusing. They did just tell me, play out the year and all that. Maybe he's thinking he might get a better deal. Obviously, he needs to put on good tape to get a better deal anywhere, but I still think he's a team leader also. I think he would like to stay. Did that spark, a little jump in his play? Maybe, who knows? But the fact remains, to me, it was by far his best performance of the season.
Absolutely.
Well, we shall see. We will be talking draft on a more regular basis heading down the stretch, particularly when we get more of an idea where the Dolphins are going to draft. Right now, I believe it's 7 based on their 3-7 record. Again, the bad news or good news, however you want to look at it, the schedule is pretty tough the next 3 games. So if the Dolphins get to 6-7, their projection of 7th now is going to go to. My best guess right now, I don't know, they're going to wind up 7-10 and pick 13th or 14th like they always do when they're mid. I mean, that's kind of where we're at.
Feels about right. Yeah.
Score prediction for Sunday, my man.
Oh man, give me the Dolphins 30-10. I have no faith in Washington at all. They look like a dead man walking to me. If I'm wrong, sure, but to me, like the Dolphins are going up, the Commanders are going down. I think it's a 20-point victory.
Okay. Mine is not quite that decisive. I do have the Dolphins winning. Check out my comprehensive preview at MiamiDolphinsOnSI.com, along with all of our written content, all for free, from Dante Colonelli, deputy editor of Miami Dolphins on SI. And again, thanks everyone for watching. I do appreciate, everybody who tunes in on a regular basis like this. If you don't already subscribe to the podcast, please do so. It helps the channel grow and maybe could lead to bigger and better things. If nothing else, Dolphin hat and Dolphin jersey when we get to 20,000 subscribers. We got work to do on that. It hasn't been a whole lot of growth so far in 2025. Maybe it's because the team hasn't been any good. Certainly not because the podcast hasn't been any good, because this stuff right here rocks. So anyway, thanks as always. Check out the written content, MiamiDolphinsSI.com. Dante and I will be back after the game on Sunday for our regular live post-game breakdown. The game is at 9:30. As always, we're going to do it. We're going to shoot maybe for 1:30. Perhaps we'll adjust so as to not conflict with the afternoon slate of games in the NFL. Tell you what, drop me a line in the comments. Let me know if you prefer we do it at 1:30 p.m. or say 7:30 p.m. before the Sunday night game. So until then, enjoy your Friday night, your Saturday, and thanks as always for watching.